My name Tiger. You hear me? I'm from New Orleans and I'm from Louisiana. Uh, you know, I'm out the A-Wall, you hear me? Downtown New Orleans, Louisiana. You know what I'm saying? I've basically been all through the city, all my life, been growed up down here. I went in for aggravated robbery and I did like 19 and a half years. And I've been home now like maybe like 2.5 years, about 2.5 years, close to 2.5 years now. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just basically, surviving, trading the waters. You know what I'm saying? Keep my head above the water, staying in the right lane, in my lane, really basically. So it's like whatever, I could do for myself, the same way I was doing for myself in the street. You know what I'm saying? I did for myself in the street. I do for myself in the in prison, and I did, and I'm doing for myself now. So what is all about is that I can use the same type of mentality is all or nothing, or it's like it's just whatever I can do for is like positive or grinding. Like if I was in the streets, if whatever it was that I was doing in the streets, even though I'm home and I might not be in the streets, I look at it the same way. Even when I was in penitentiary, I depended on me. I ain't let nobody else do, you know, or think for me, Cause so it's like it's a grind. It's always you trying to, climb up. So like even like if I'm on the street, it's just like I'm climbing up to get somewhere. I'm always got a eye on something. I'm always got an aim. That's the man. The man in me keeps you with an aim. If you ain't got an aim, you ain't got no direction. If you ain't, you just going, you just out here. So I got an aim. You know what I'm saying? And I'm aiming to be, in a better position than I was before I went to penitentiary.
How would you say you changed?
I mean, I changed a lot because I'm not really in the street. Like, I mean, I didn't start my own businesses. I got my own business license. I've been to college, still going to college. Go to Delgado Community College, just got into that. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, if I was in the street, I wouldn't even be thinking about college. Or I wouldn't be thinking about getting my own business. So that's what the penitentiary part come in. You know what I'm saying? Is you being able to utilize the situation to put yourself in a better situation. You know what I'm saying? Because all right, in other words, like when you in a penitentiary, it's like you gotta rely on yourself to get to do like. And I mean, all right, you can get a inmate counsel to do a writ for you. Well, that's a appeal. If you like me, I went to trial. So even though I went to trial and I got the time that I got the 40 years, but I went to trial. So I gotta appeal. So I gotta meet them deadlines. I can't miss the deadline. I gotta always, stay in court. I gotta constantly file to the next court. You got a certain amount of days to get to the next court. You know what I'm saying? From district court, you got 30 days to get to the appeal court. Well, just from a youthful standpoint, just starting from a youth standpoint. When you on the streets, you ain't gonna know nothing about no law. You're not equipped to read and write law like a lawyer could. So you're gonna be basically putting your fate in a lawyer, basically. Now, by you not knowing, if you didn't pay them, then you got a public defender, and they're gonna be basically working with the state or whatever, or they might be working for you. But anyway, so wherever the situation go when you go to trial, you gonna have to, if you go to trial, if you don't care about, then you gotta do whatever time they give you. But if you do go to trial, then you gotta do the time wherever they give you after the sentence. So going through that process is this, you gonna have to have some type of diligent will, but in you to be able to constantly file to get to that next court. You gotta, in other words, like after you get sentenced, you gonna automatically get an appeal. That appeal is a direct appeal. That's your only appeal. That appeal right there. If you get denied that appeal, then you gotta constantly file to the next court, and then now you gotta know how to put this together. You gotta write your own writ. You gotta come up with your own constitutional violation. You gotta come up with your own. You gotta get in the books. You gotta learn that. And they let you know that ignorance of law is no exception. So they're not going to accept the fact, oh, I don't know nothing about this yet, so no, they ain't got nothing. You got to learn. So therefore, that means that you got to really get and dig. You got to dig deep. You got to know what you put on the pill. You got to know how to, So and these things that you doing is basically you have to do. I mean, you can't depend on nobody to do this for you. You can't rely on nobody to go through that process. You gotta be willing to go through that whole process yourself. And it's not easy because if you don't meet these deadlines, you can get balled out of court, which is 930 per an acre. And if you get balled out of court, now you can't file nothing. Now you gotta come up with something new. You see what I'm saying? So that's what makes these things important. And that's what makes these things hard. Because first, you don't got no lawyer. Second of all, you gotta depend on yourself, and you barely got an education as it is. From different, it's different. It's a different learning method. It comes from different learning methods. Meaning, that some people learn how to do things differently. Just like in school. If you go to school, teachers have to really know how to break down each student to be able to teach them. You can't just try to say, oh, one way fit all. That's where teachers fall into situations of missing certain children or maybe missing some of the people that they can't really teach because you can't put a method that everybody got to learn from that one particular type. So therefore, if I'm gonna learn the law, I'm gonna learn law from the way that I'm gonna be able to understand it. Some people, in other words, what I'm saying is some people may have the ability to be like, if they're in population, they might have the ability to go to the law library. And they can sit in the law library, read law books or whatever. But sometimes you might be in a cell where you don't have access to the law library, but you gotta get this writ done. So therefore, you gotta learn how to read cases. And most of the time, case law is basically you learning the real law. Because basically what's ever in the book, 9 times out of 10 is in the case, and more importantly, that cases is what the court's gonna go off of. That's what they're gonna go off of. What's a caseload, what they put, what they rule, what they didn't rule, So therefore, you have to really learn how to read cases, understand the law, understand what's being said, using that terminology of that type of law at the time you was convicted. Not just all the most recent laws, but the most recent laws at a year and the time that you was convicted, and you got to learn how to apply the new law, to go with the old law, if it's applied retroactive, if it's not retroactive, meaning that law could apply to older, like if I was convicted in 98 and this law came out in 2003, then I could apply that law in 2003 to my 98 case because it went retroactive. You see what I'm saying? So that's, so you gotta learn all them type of things. You gotta know what's gonna bar you out of court, what's a post-conviction, and you gotta learn all that. So these things is not easy because you gotta keep in mind that you coming from the street. You coming from a situation where you don't know nothing about no law. You just, got caught up in the streets, whoop, whoop, whoop. So